15 minutes. That's all it takes to change everything. You waste hours every day chasing noise, distractions, illusions that vanish the second you touch them. But 15 minutes of listening, of focus, of opening your ears instead of running your mouth, that could shift your entire life. People don't like to listen, because listening means surrendering control. Listening means maybe you'll hear something that makes you uncomfortable, something that forces you to see the cracks in your perfect little story. But that's where the truth hides. In the words you don't want to hear, in the silence you're too restless to sit in. 15 minutes isn't much. It's shorter than the time you waste scrolling, shorter than the time you spend arguing, shorter than the time you spend lying to yourself. But in that brief window, if you actually pay attention, the world could look very different. 15 minutes. That's all it takes to either shift the direction of your life or waste it completely. People don't understand how much can happen in such a short span because they've trained themselves to think small, to dismiss the value of moments, to laugh at the idea that seconds could carry the weight of destiny. But think about it. In 15 minutes, a decision is made that changes families forever. In 15 minutes, someone signs a deal that alters the course of their life. In 15 minutes, a confession either saves a soul or destroys a relationship. And yet, when you're asked to sit down, to listen, to shut out the noise of the world for a quarter of an hour, suddenly it feels like torture, because silence scares you more than chaos ever could. Silence forces you to hear the truth that's been scratching at the walls of your skull. And most people would rather drown in distraction than let it in. The power of silence and listening isn't about sitting in a corner and pretending to meditate. No, it's about stripping away the illusions that keep you comfortable. When you stop talking, when you stop filling the space with noise, you start hearing the cracks in your own foundation. You notice the way your thoughts spiral, the way your fears whisper, the way your insecurities creep out from under the rug you've buried them beneath. And that's why people run. They're terrified of what silence has to say. But those who dare to stay, those who dare to actually listen instead of just hearing, they discover that the voice inside them was never an enemy. It was the map. The problem is, maps don't help unless you're willing to follow them. You see, most of you walk through life with your ears open, but your minds shut. You nod when people talk, but you don't absorb. You listen to advice, but you only filter it through the lens of what you want to hear. And that's why nothing changes. That's why years pass, and you're still stuck in the same place, recycling the same excuses. But when you truly listen, without trying to defend yourself, without plotting your next move, without shaping your response, you start to catch details the rest of the world misses. You start to recognize patterns, signals, warnings, and opportunities that everyone else walks past. It's not that life doesn't talk to them. It's that they're too loud to hear it. 15 minutes of silence can do more for you than years of talking. In that space, You begin to see how much energy you waste on pretending. Pretending you're fine, pretending you're strong, pretending you're in control. Listening strips that away, and suddenly you're confronted with the naked truth. You're fragile, you're hungry, you're restless. And that's where strength is born. Not in the mask, but in the cracks. People think listening is passive, weak, submissive. But tell me, who's stronger, the one who can scream the loudest, or the one who can sit in silence and hear every hidden scream around them? The truth is, silence is the sharpest weapon you'll ever hold. It cuts deeper than words, because words can be twisted, but silence forces revelation. Watch people squirm when you don't respond. Watch their truths leak out in the absence of noise. Silence unmasks people, and it unmasks you. That's why it's so unbearable for most. But that's also why it's priceless for those who are chosen to rise. So when I say 15 minutes, I don't mean scroll through your phone with the volume down. I don't mean sit there waiting for the clock to run out. I mean 15 minutes where you give yourself no escape, no distraction, no performance. Just you and the truth. It will claw at you. It will laugh at you. It will expose every little weakness you thought you buried. But it will also hand you the key you've been searching for. Because everything you're running toward, everything you're begging for, everything you think is missing, it's already been whispered to you 1,000 times. You just never stop to listen. The power isn't in the noise. It's never been in the noise. The noise is what blinds you, deafens you, drowns you. The power is in the pause, in the moments no one wants to endure, in the silence that forces you to face what you are and what you've become. Only a few will ever dare to listen long enough to find it. The rest will keep talking themselves in circles, running out of time, never realizing that the 15 minutes they refused to give could have rewritten their entire story. People are addicted to rushing, to filling every second with movement, with chatter, with meaningless little distractions that keep them from seeing the bigger game. They think speed equals progress, that being busy equals being alive. But they don't realize they're sprinting in circles, exhausting themselves in a race that never had a finish line. They want answers instantly, rewards instantly, peace instantly. And when it doesn't come on their schedule, they break, they scream, they quit. That's why patience is such a dangerous thing. It's not just about waiting. It's about controlling the hunger that eats at you while you wait. Most people lose to their hunger before the victory ever shows its face. Patience isn't standing still. It's standing strong. It's choosing not to shatter while the world tries to bend you. You want to know why most people never reach what was meant for them. Because they tap out before the miracle arrives. They confuse the silence before the storm with emptiness, and they run away right before the rain begins to fall. Patience is the bridge between the promise and the proof, and only a handful of people are willing to walk across it without turning back. You see, when nothing is happening, something is always happening. You just don't see it yet. Seeds grow roots before they ever break the soil. But impatient people dig them up because they can't stand waiting. And then they wonder why they never harvest anything but dust. People underestimate the weight of time. They think if it doesn't happen today, it won't happen at all. That's why they settle for less. That's why they grab whatever scraps are thrown their way, because they can't stomach the wait for what's truly theirs. But patience, real patience, isn't passive. It's active discipline. It's grinding while you wait, sharpening your blade while the world sleeps, preparing your soul for the moment the door finally opens. And when it does, you won't just walk through it. You'll storm through it, armed and ready, because you didn't waste the waiting season crying about how unfair life was. But here's the cruel joke. Patience will test you harder than any storm. It will whisper lies in your ear, telling you nothing's coming, nothing's changing, that you're wasting your life holding on to a hope that was never real. And that's when most collapse. Not because they were weak, but because they couldn't outlast their own doubts. The battlefield isn't outside, it's inside. Patience is war against the clock in your own mind, against the screams in your chest demanding immediate satisfaction. The few who can outwait the lies, who can outlast the hunger, they become unstoppable. Because if time itself couldn't break them, what else could? Impatience creates slaves. People sell their souls for shortcuts, for the illusion of quick success, and end up trapped in cages they built with their own desperation. But patience creates kings. It builds character forged in fire, discipline hardened in silence, resilience carved out by the weight of waiting. While the impatient run around chasing crumbs, the patient sit at the table that was being set for them the whole time. You want something big. You want something real. You think you're chosen for more. Then learn to wait without breaking. Because the test isn't in the prize. It's in the silence before it arrives. Patience is the greatest filter life has. It separates the pretenders from the chosen. Everyone says they're willing to do what it takes, until the hours drag into days, the days into years, and nothing seems to move. That's when the crowd disappears. That's when the chosen rise. Because patience isn't about time. It's about faith. Faith that the unseen is working for you. Faith that the roots are growing deep before the tree shows its face. Faith that your suffering isn't punishment, but preparation. And if you can hold on to that faith while the silence mocks you, while the waiting eats at you, while the world laughs at you for standing still, you'll have what they never will. The truth is, the waiting season isn't empty. It's where the transformation happens. It's where you're molded, broken, rebuilt, hardened, sharpened. The world will never respect patience because the world worships speed. But the world has always bowed to those who mastered time, not those who chased it. So when the silence stretches, when the hunger burns, when the doubts scream, remember patience isn't weakness. It's the quiet fire that separates the ones who talk about destiny from the ones who actually arrive at it. Truth is a slippery little thing, isn't it? People dress it up, twist it, bury it, drown it in noise, all because they're terrified of what it looks like naked. But here's the sick punchline. Truth doesn't hide from you. You hide from it. It's always there, humming beneath the surface, waiting for the one who dares to look it in the eye without flinching. You know why most never see it? Because truth doesn't arrive with a soft knock. It barges in like an unwelcome guest, tearing down the curtains you so carefully put up to protect your illusions. And when it does, you can't unsee it. That's the real terror. Discomfort is the mask truth wears. You think you want honesty, but the second it burns your skin, you run for the shadows. People claim they want clarity, but they crave comfort more. That's why lies sell better than truth. Why illusions are worshipped. Why distraction is the drug of the masses. The truth isn't a lullaby, it's a scream. And only a few can stomach it long enough to hear what it's really saying. They'll squirm, they'll resist. They'll try to stitch the world back together with their fantasy threads, but reality doesn't bend to feelings. It just waits until the fragile, little lies crack open, spilling the blood of what you didn't want to face. The irony is, the very thing you run from is the very thing that could set you free. But people don't want freedom if it comes with scars. They want freedom wrapped in ribbons, soft and painless. That's why the truth stays hidden in plain sight, because most are blind on purpose. They'd rather carry the weight of denial than the sting of revelation. It's easier to drown in a dream than choke on reality. That's the curse of humanity. Choosing lies that soothe instead of truths that cut. And yet the chosen ones, the rare ones, they know that pain is the doorway. They don't flinch when it stabs. They lean into it, because they understand that the wound is where the healing begins. You ever notice how the truth doesn't whisper? It echoes. It follows you into bed. It laughs at you in the mirror. It seeps into every quiet corner of your life, daring you to acknowledge it. You can ignore it for a while. Sure, bury it under distractions, drown it in noise, pretend it doesn't exist. But the truth is patient. It rots your comfort from the inside until you can't ignore the smell anymore. And when it finally breaks through, it doesn't come with mercy. It rips apart everything you thought was safe. Because only by destroying the lie can it make room for what's real. And here's the real kicker. Truth doesn't care about your timing. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It doesn't ask for your permission. It comes when it comes, and it never apologizes for the chaos it brings. That's why it feels like betrayal when it lands. It wasn't the world lying to you. It was you lying to yourself. The truth just turned on the lights. And if that burns your eyes, maybe it's because you've been too comfortable living in the dark. But once you see it, really see it, there's no going back. The world doesn't look the same. The people around you don't sound the same. Even the voice in your head changes tone. That's why so few can handle it. They'd rather stay blind. Because sight is responsibility. Once you see the truth, you can't keep playing the fool. You either rise to meet it or crumble under the weight of knowing. There's no middle ground. And that's the beauty and the horror of it. Truth strips you bare, then asks, "Now what are you going to do with this?" People think discomfort is the enemy, but it's the invitation. The fire that burns you is the same fire that forges you. The sting of truth isn't punishment. It's proof you're alive, proof you're being refined. The weak avoid it, but the chosen endure it because they know the only way out is through. The ones who dare to stand in the discomfort, who don't run from the cuts and bruises of reality, they walk out sharper, clearer, unstoppable. Because once you've made peace with the discomfort of truth, no lie, no illusion, no distraction can ever chain you again. Distractions are the sweetest poison served to the masses, dressed up in flashing lights, buzzing screens, endless chatter that feels important but is emptier than smoke. People think they're living because their calendars are full, their feeds are crowded, their days are noisy, but it's all a trick. A trick to keep them blind to the one thing that actually matters. Focus. The world doesn't have to chain you if it can distract you. Why lock you in a cage when it can keep you entertained enough to never notice you're already trapped? Every second you hand over to distraction, you bleed power. Think about it. Your mind is the sharpest weapon you'll ever own, but in the wrong hands, it dulls into uselessness. They know this. That's why everything around you screams for your attention. Notifications, headlines, gossip, pointless arguments. They're not accidents, they're nets. Nets designed to catch you, hold you, waste you. And the cruelest part, you tie yourself up in them willingly, laughing while you do it, thinking you're in control. But no one who's controlled by distraction has control of anything. Focus is rare because it's hard. It requires cutting through the noise, ripping away from comfort, choosing to see the bigger picture when everyone else is hypnotized by the glitter. But those who master it, they move differently. They see the angles no one else notices. They hear the whispers buried beneath the shouts. Focus isn't glamorous, it's gritty. It's the discipline to say, no 1,000 times a day, to protect your mind like it's sacred ground, because it is. Without focus, you're nothing but a puppet dancing to someone else's rhythm. With focus, you're untouchable, because you can't be baited by the circus. But here's the catch. Distractions aren't always ugly. They're often dressed up as opportunities, friendships, even obligations. They trick you by wearing masks of importance. This can't wait. You'll miss out. Everyone else is doing it. That's the bait. And people swallow it whole, never realizing they've traded purpose for business. Ask yourself, how many of your days are filled with noise disguised as necessity? How many hours have you given to things that never gave anything back? That's the robbery of distraction. It doesn't just steal your time, it steals your life, piece by piece, so slowly you don't notice until it's gone. And when you're distracted, you're predictable. Predictability is weakness, because it makes you easy to control. They know where your eyes will go, where your thoughts will wander. where your emotions will flare. They lead you around with crumbs, and you think you're making choices, but you're not. You're following the leash. Focus cuts the leash. It takes discipline to say, not this, not now. To pull your gaze away from what everyone else is hypnotized by and aim it at what actually matters. That's why so few are chosen, because so few can resist the sweet poison long enough to see clearly. Distractions breed weakness, but focus breeds power. It sharpens your instincts, fuels your strength, magnifies your time. Focus isn't about staring at one thing forever. It's about knowing where not to look. It's about protecting your energy like it's gold, because it is. People waste themselves in 1,000 directions, then wonder why they feel empty. But those who master focus, they pour all their energy into what matters, and that's why they bend reality in their favor. The world bends to those who aren't distracted by it. But the tragedy is, most people won't even try. They're too addicted to the noise, too afraid of silence, too weak to face what would happen if they unplugged from the circus. Because silence forces you to face yourself, and that terrifies them more than anything else. So they stay distracted, forever chasing shadows, while the chosen carve their path in the quiet. That's the difference. The distracted are consumed, but the focused consume. And once you've tasted that kind of clarity, the world can throw all the flashing lights, all the noise, all the illusions at once. You won't flinch, because you'll know the trick, and you'll be too sharp to fall for it again. Control. That's the word people choke on without even realizing it. They think they're in charge of their lives because they make choices, because they pick their meals, their clothes, their jobs, their friends. But control isn't about the little things. It's about the unseen forces that steer you when you're not paying attention. The truth is, most people are puppets dancing on strings pulled by fear, by hunger, by desire, by distraction. They mistake reaction for control, when in reality they're nothing more than mirrors, reflecting what the world throws at them. That's not power. That's slavery dressed up as freedom. Real control isn't loud. It isn't flashy. It doesn't announce itself. It's quiet, cold, and absolute. It's the ability to stand still when everything around you screams for movement. It's the strength to hold your tongue when your emotions beg you to explode. It's the patience to wait when the world mocks you for not rushing. That's why so few have it. Because it doesn't look like power to the blind. They think control is domination, stomping louder than everyone else, barking orders. But that's just theater. Real control is invisible, and it terrifies people. Because you can't predict someone who isn't enslaved by their impulses. You ever notice how easy it is to manipulate the average person? Dangle a little fear in front of them, and they crumble. Flash a little pleasure, and they salivate. Whisper a little lie, and they'll build their lives around it. That's not strength. That's weakness hiding in plain sight. The one who has control isn't the one chasing, but the one who can't be baited. The one who doesn't need the carrot or fear the stick. That's the one you can't bend. That's the one who breaks the system instead of being broken by it. And here's the funny part. People give up their control willingly. They hand it over piece by piece, just to avoid the discomfort of discipline. They'd rather be told what to think, what to buy, what to chase, than carry the weight of deciding for themselves. They call it convenience, but it's really surrender. They trade power for ease, clarity for comfort, freedom for chains dressed in velvet. And then they wonder why they feel empty, why they feel powerless, why they feel trapped. Because they sold the only thing that could have freed them their control. Real control is mastery over the self, not others. If you can't control your hunger, your rage, your doubt, your greed, then you're nothing but a slave. You'll be yanked around by anyone clever enough to press your buttons. And trust me, the world is full of button pushers. But when you master yourself, when you cut those strings, you become untouchable. You don't flinch when threatened. You don't drool when tempted. You don't break when mocked. You move when you choose, not when the world demands it. That's real power, the kind that can't be seen, but is felt in every room you walk into. But mastery has a price. It demands sacrifice. You'll lose friends who need you to be weak. You'll lose comforts that used to numb you. You'll lose illusions that used to soothe you. That's why so few take this path. They'd rather keep their fake comforts than pay for real control. They're terrified of discipline, terrified of silence, terrified of their own reflection when the noise fades. But the chosen ones, they understand that pain is the price of freedom and discipline is the price of power. They're willing to pay it. That's why they rise while the rest crawl. The cruel reality is this. If you don't control yourself, someone else will. If you don't master your impulses will master you. And when they do, you'll belong to anyone who knows how to feed them. That's why the masses stay predictable, why they stay weak, why they stay chained. But the rare ones, the chosen ones, they claw their way out. They take control back piece by piece, cut by cut, until there are no strings left to pull. And once you taste that kind of freedom, once you realize nothing owns you anymore, not fear, not hunger, not desire, you become dangerous. Because nothing is more terrifying to a world built on control than someone it can't control.